Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy.
The sky cried, matching the storm inside him as he tossed and turned in their now empty bed. He had been alone for some time, but the sadness still held him. The pain in his heart was still there, refusing to go away with the memories. Outside, the rain hit the window, a constant reminder of how time kept moving. He reached out, looking for her side of the bed, but it was cold and empty. The only sign of her was the scent of lavender on her pillow. He got up and walked to the closet, its door slightly open, tempting him with memories. A mix of colors filled his view, each piece of clothing reminding him of her, alive but no longer there. The fabric felt cool against his skin, bringing back memories. Her laugh, the way she'd spin in front of the mirror, asking if the dress made her look fat. He always told her she looked beautiful in anything. Without thinking, he took the dress off the hanger. The silk felt soft against his gray pajamas as he held it close, smelling the last traces of her. His reflection in the mirror showed a broken man, holding on to the past. Messy auburn hair, dark stubble on his jaw, eyes red from another sleepless night. "Mary," he whispered to the empty room. The dress slipped through his fingers, pooling on the floor. He bent to retrieve it, and something shifted inside him. Instead of hanging it back up, he found himself stepping out of his pajama bottoms. The rational part of his mind screamed that this was wrong, but the ache in his chest demanded something, anything to fill the void. He pulled the dress over his head. The silk cascaded down his body, the hem brushing just above his knees. In the mirror, he saw not himself, but an echo of her. The dress hung loose on his frame, designed for her curves rather than his angular build, but something about wearing it made him feel closer. His hands shook as he returned to the closet, pulling out more items. A cream cardigan she'd worn constantly during chilly evenings, a pair of her jeans, her favorite green blouse with the pearl buttons. He laid each piece on the bed with reverence, creating a shrine of fabric and memory. Days blurred together. He'd wake, dress in her clothes, and move through the house like a specter. The blue dress became his armor against grief. The cream cardigan, a shield against the cold emptiness. He stopped answering the phone, ignored the doorbell, existed in a bubble where time stood still, and she somehow remained present through the clothes that had once touched her skin. One morning, catching his reflection while wearing her red sundress, reality crashed down. What was he doing? This wasn't healthy. This wasn't normal. But normal had died with Mary, hadn't it? The doorbell rang, persistent and demanding. He ignored it, as had become habit, until a voice called through the door. "I know you're in there. Your car hasn't moved in 2 weeks. Either you answer this door, or I'm calling the police for a welfare check." Mrs. Henderson from next door. Of course. The neighborhood busybody who'd brought casseroles for the first month after the funeral, then switched to concerned glances and whispered conversations with other neighbors. He glanced down at the red sundress, then at the door. Panic rose in his throat. He couldn't let her see him like this, but the threat of police involvement. "Just a minute," he called, his voice cracking from disuse. Frantically, he searched for his regular clothes, only to realize he'd shoved them all into the guest room closet weeks ago. Mrs. Henderson's knocking grew more insistent. "I'm counting to 10. No time. He grabbed Mary's long black coat from the hall closet, wrapping it around himself to hide the dress. His hand hesitated on the doorknob, then turned it. Mrs. Henderson stood on the porch, her purple quilted jacket bright against the gray morning. Her eyes swept over him, taking in his disheveled appearance and the women's coat. "Good heavens, you look terrible." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." She pushed past him into the house, her orthopedic shoes squeaking on the hardwood. "This place is a mess. When's the last time you ate a proper meal?" He pulled the coat tighter. "Mrs. Henderson, I appreciate your concern, but nothing. Grief is one thing, wasting away is another." Her gaze sharpened as she noticed the hem of the red dress peeking below the coat. "Is that—" Heat flooded his face. "Please leave." Instead of the judgment he expected, her expression softened. "Oh, honey, you miss her that much?" The kindness in her voice broke something inside him. Tears he'd held back for weeks spilled over. I can't stop. When I wear them, it's like she's still here. Mrs. Henderson guided him to the couch, her arm around his shoulders. Have you talked to anyone? A counselor? A therapist? I can't tell anyone about this. They'd think I'm crazy. You're not crazy, you're grieving. She squeezed his shoulder. My nephew,
Martin, specializes in grief counseling. Very discreet, very understanding. Will you at least consider seeing him? He nodded, too exhausted to argue. The following Tuesday found him in Dr. Martin's office, a warm space decorated in earth tones. The therapist, a man in his 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, listened without judgment as the whole story poured out. Grief manifests in many ways, Dr. Martin said when he'd finished. What you're experiencing isn't uncommon. The clothes provide a tangible connection to your wife. So I'm not losing my mind? Not at all, but I am curious, when you wear her clothes, how do you feel, beyond the connection to Mary? The question caught him off guard. I don't know, different, softer somehow. Like I can access parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. Dr. Martin leaned forward. Have you considered that perhaps this experience is showing you something about yourself? Something that goes beyond grief? What do you mean? Sometimes loss opens doors we didn't know existed. You mentioned feeling softer. Can you elaborate? He thought back to the moments in front of the mirror, wearing the blue dress. It's like there's another person inside me. Someone who's been sleeping for years. When I put on her clothes, that person wakes up. And how does that person feel? Free, he admitted, the word surprising him. More complete somehow. Dr. Martin made a note. I'd like to suggest something that might sound unconventional. Instead of fighting these feelings, what if we explored them? Not as a symptom of grief, but as a potential path toward healing. I don't understand. There's a therapist I know, Patricia Williams, who specializes in gender identity and expression. I'm not saying that's what this is, but she might be able to help you understand these feelings better. Would you be open to meeting with her? The suggestion should have terrified him. Instead, he felt a flutter of hope? Maybe. Yes. Patricia Williams operated from a small office downtown, the walls decorated with abstract art in soft pastels. She was younger than Dr. Martin, with short gray hair and a warm smile. Dr. Martin told me a bit about your situation, she began. I want you to know this is a safe space. Nothing you say here will shock or upset me. Over the next several sessions, Patricia gently guided him through an exploration of his feelings. She never pushed, never labeled, simply created space for him to discover truths he'd buried deep. When you wear the clothes, you mention feeling like a different person. Have you given that person a name? He hesitated. Sometimes in my head, I think of her as Marie, like Mary, but different. Tell me about Marie. She's gentle, patient, all the things I struggle to be as myself. When I'm Marie, the anger goes away. The harsh edges soften. Would you like to explore being Marie more fully? Not just through clothes, but in other ways. His heart raced. Like what? Well, we could start with presentation. I know someone, Linda Chen, who works with people exploring their gender expression. She could teach you about makeup, movement, voice, if that's something you'd be interested in. The old him would have run from the room, but the past months had stripped away so many of his defenses, left him raw and open to possibilities he'd never considered. Yes, I think I'd like that. Linda Chen turned out to be a vivacious woman in her 40s who operated from a private studio. Their first meeting was awkward. Him sitting stiffly in the chair, wearing his usual jeans and black polo shirt, while she studied his face with professional interest. Great bone structure, she announced. And that auburn hair, do you color it? No, it's natural. Lucky you. Most of my clients would kill for that color. She pulled out a large makeup case. Now let's start with the basics. Skincare is essential. Over the following weeks, Linda became his guide into a world he'd never imagined entering. She taught him about foundation and concealer, how to shape his eyebrows without making them too thin, the art of applying lipstick without smearing. "Relax your mouth," she instructed during one session. "You're holding too much tension. Think soft thoughts." "How do I think soft thoughts? What makes you feel peaceful?" He thought of Mary's garden, the roses she'd tended with such care. "Flowers. My wife loved roses." "Perfect. Think of roses while you apply the lipstick. See? Much better." She moved beyond makeup to movement and posture. "You're fighting your body. Marie wouldn't fight. She'd flow." "I don't know how to flow." "Sure you do? You just forgot." Linda put on soft music. Close your eyes, feel the music. Let your body respond naturally. Embarrassment burned his cheeks, but he tried. At first, his movements were stiff, mechanical. But gradually, as the weeks passed, something shifted. He stopped thinking about how he looked and started feeling the movement from within. "Better," Linda said one afternoon, watching him walk across the studio in the black heels she'd provided. "But you're still apologizing with your body. Marie doesn't need to apologize for existing." She was right. Every movement carried an undercurrent of shame, a constant sorry for taking up space that he hadn't realized was there. Stand tall, shoulders back, not military straight, just confident. There. Feel the difference? He did. In the mirror, Marie looked back at him, still learning, still uncertain, but present in a way that felt revolutionary. "I think you're ready," Linda announced after 2 months of sessions. "Ready for what?" "To take Marie out into the world." Terror and excitement warred in his chest. "I can't. What if someone recognizes me?" "We'll start small. There's a coffee shop across town, very inclusive. I'll go with you." The thought of stepping outside as Marie paralyzed him. But Linda had become more than a teacher. She'd become a friend. If she believed he was ready... "Okay," he whispered. The morning of their coffee outing, he stood before his mirror at home, hands trembling as he applied makeup the way Linda had taught him. Foundation to even skin tone. Concealer for the dark circles that had become permanent fixtures. A touch of blush to bring life to his cheeks. Lipstick in a subtle pink shade. He'd chosen Mary's green dress with small white flowers. Not because it was hers, but because the color complemented his auburn hair. The distinction felt important. This wasn't about wearing Mary's clothes anymore. This was about Marie choosing her own presentation. A knock at the door made his heart leap. Linda stood on the porch, wearing a yellow sundress that made her skin glow. "You look beautiful," she said simply. "I'm terrified." "Good. Fear means you're doing something important." She linked her arm through his. "Come on, adventure awaits." The drive to the coffee shop felt both endless and too quick. Every red light was an opportunity for other drivers to stare, every pedestrian a potential disaster. But Linda chatted casually, her presence an anchor in the storm of his anxiety. The coffee shop buzzed with activity, students hunched over laptops, friends caught up over lattes. Normal people living normal lives, while he felt like a neon sign flashing, "Imposter." "2 cappuccinos, please," Linda told the barista, a young person with blue hair and multiple piercings. "Coming right up." They smiled at both of them equally. No double takes, no confusion. They found a table by the window. Marie's hands shook as she lifted the cup, certain everyone was staring. But as minutes passed and the world didn't end, something loosened in her chest. "See?" Linda said softly. "You're just 2 women having coffee. I don't feel like a woman. I feel like a man in a dress." "What makes someone a woman?" Marie considered this. "I don't know. Biology? Is that all? What about the women who can't have children? Are they less female? What about the way you feel when you move through the world as Marie? Doesn't that count for something? I guess I never thought about it that way." You don't have to have all the answers today, or ever. Just be present in this moment. How does it feel? Marie took a breath, let herself actually experience the moment instead of bracing for disaster. The dress moved softly against her skin. The lipstick tasted faintly of vanilla. Across the table, a friend smiled encouragingly. "It feels right," she admitted. They finished their coffee without incident. On the drive home, Marie found herself not wanting the outing to end. Being in the world as herself, and she was starting to think of Marie as herself, had been terrifying, but also exhilarating. "Same time next week?" Linda asked when they reached the house. "Yes, please." Linda hugged her goodbye, and Marie walked to her front door with a strange sense of accomplishment. She'd done it. She'd existed in public as Marie, and the world had kept spinning. Inside, she kicked off the heels and collapsed on the couch. The experience had drained her, but in a good way, like exercise for a muscle that hadn't been used in years. Maybe ever. Her phone buzzed. Patricia, her therapist, checking in. "How did it go?" the text read. "Scary but good," Marie typed back. "I think I want to do it again. I'm so proud of you. See you Thursday?" "Yes." Marie set the phone aside and caught her reflection in the living room mirror. The makeup had held up well, though she could see where she'd sweated through some of the foundation. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves around her face. She'd been growing it out for months now, and it finally reached her shoulders. But more than the physical changes, something in her eyes looked different. Lighter, somehow. As if a weight she'd carried so long she'd forgotten it was there had finally started to lift. The following weeks fell into a rhythm. Therapy with Patricia on Thursdays, where they unpacked the complex emotions around gender and identity. Sessions with Linda, expanding Marie's comfort zone. And increasingly frequent outings, the coffee shop, then a bookstore, then lunch at a small restaurant. One afternoon at the bookstore, Marie browsed the fiction section when someone called her name. Her birth name, her male name. Ice flooded her veins as she turned to find Robert, a former coworker, staring at her in confusion. "Is that you?" Robert's eyes traveled from her face to the teal dress she wore, then back up. What's going on?" Marie's mind went blank. All of Linda's coaching about confidence evaporated. She stood frozen, a deer in headlights, waiting for the inevitable ridicule or disgust. "I'm sorry," Robert said, surprising her. "I didn't mean to ambush you. You look different. Happy?" Marie's voice came out higher than her old voice, but lower than the feminine tone she'd been practicing. "It's complicated. Hey, no judgment here. My daughter just came out as gay last year. I'm learning that the world's a lot bigger than I thought." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable but trying. "Do you go by a different name now?" "Marie," she whispered. "Nice to meet you, Marie. I'm sorry about Mary, by the way. I should have reached out." "Thank you. Are you back at work? I haven't seen you." "No, I'm figuring things out." Robert nodded. "Well, if you ever want to grab coffee and catch up, let me know. Take care, Marie." He walked away, leaving Marie standing among the stacks, processing what had just happened. Her first encounter with someone from her old life, and he'd been kind. Awkward, but kind. She bought the book she'd been holding without really seeing it, and drove home in a daze. The world hadn't ended. Robert hadn't laughed or called her sick. He'd used her name, her real name, Marie. That evening, she called Patricia for an emergency session. "He accepted me," Marie said, still in shock. Just like that. "How does that make you feel?" "Terrified, hopeful, like maybe this is actually possible." "What's possible?" Marie took a breath. The words had been building for weeks, maybe months, but saying them out loud felt monumental. Living as Marie, not just sometimes, all the time. Is that what you want? I don't know, maybe? The thought of going back to being him feels like putting on a costume now, but being Marie full-time, that's huge. It is huge, but you don't have to decide everything today. What would it look like to take one more step toward living as Marie? Marie thought about it. I guess, telling more people? Being out in more situations? That sounds like a good next step. Who would you want to tell? Mrs. Henderson. She saw me that first time, and she was kind. Maybe she'd understand. Only one way to find out. The next morning, Marie stood on Mrs. Henderson's porch, wearing the blue dress that had started everything. Her neighbor answered the door in her signature purple jacket, eyes widening slightly at Marie's appearance. "Well," Mrs. Henderson said after a moment, You look healthier than the last time I saw you. Come in, dear. Marie followed her into a living room that smelled of cinnamon and looked like a craft store had exploded. Doilies covered every surface, and ceramic cats peered from various shelves. Tea? Mrs. Henderson asked, already moving toward the kitchen. Please. While the older woman bustled about, Marie perched on the edge of a floral sofa, trying to figure out how to start this conversation. Mrs. Henderson returned with a tray bearing delicate china cups and a plate of cookies. So, Marie, is it? Marie's cup rattled against the saucer. How did you know? Dear, I may be old, but I'm not blind. Plus, Linda Chen is my hairdresser's cousin. Small world. She settled into her recliner with a soft grunt. The real question is, are you happy? I think so. Happier than I've been since... Marie trailed off. Since Mary passed. I understand. Grief changes us in unexpected ways. Mrs. Henderson sipped her tea thoughtfully. My Harold died 15 years ago. I took up quilting because he'd always teased me about my sewing. Thought I'd spite him by becoming good at it. Ended up discovering I loved it. This feels bigger than taking up quilting. Does it? You're discovering something about yourself that brings you joy. The packaging might be different, but the heart of it's the same. She set down her cup and leaned forward. Can I ask you something personal? Marie nodded. Do you still miss Mary when you're dressed like this? The question cut deep. Every day. But it's different now. Less sharp. I think she'd want me to be happy. I think you're right. Mary was a special woman. She loved you for who you were, not what you wore. Mrs. Henderson reached over and patted Marie's hand. You know, the Methodist Church is having their spring rummage sale next week. They could use volunteers to sort donations. Interested? The shift in topic threw Marie. Are you sure they'd want me there? Reverend Jackson's got a transgender grandson. He's been educating the congregation for the past year. You'd be welcomed. She paused. Plus, they get the most wonderful clothing donations. Might find some things you like. Marie felt tears prick her eyes. This practical acceptance, more than any grand gesture, touched something deep inside. I'd love to help. Wonderful. We'll go together. Safety in numbers and all that. The rummage sale preparation took place in the church basement, a vast space that smelled of dust and old paper. Marie arrived with Mrs. Henderson, wearing jeans and a pink blouse, her auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail. Several volunteers were already working, sorting items into categories. Everyone, this is Marie, Mrs. Henderson announced. She's here to help with the clothing. A few curious glances, but mostly just nods and waves before people returned to their tasks. Marie exhaled slowly and followed Mrs. Henderson to tables piled high with donated clothes. You take women's clothes, obviously, Mrs. Henderson said with a wink. I'll handle the linens. Marie lost herself in the familiar rhythm of sorting, checking for stains, organizing by size, folding neatly. The repetitive work soothed her anxiety, and she found herself humming softly. You have a lovely voice. Marie startled, turning to find a woman about her age watching from across the table. The stranger wore a purple sweater and had striking silver hair despite her relatively young face. She moved carefully, a cane supporting her left side. Sorry, the woman continued. Didn't mean to startle you. I'm Nancy. Marie. I know. Mrs. Henderson's quite the town crier. Nancy smiled, revealing a slight gap between her front teeth that somehow made her more attractive. Mind if I join you? Sitting tasks are better for me these days. Of course not. Nancy settled onto a folding chair with obvious relief. As they worked side by side, she kept up a gentle stream of conversation. Nothing prying, just pleasant chatter about the weather, the upcoming church bazaar, a book she'd recently read. Multiple sclerosis, Nancy said when she caught Marie glancing at the cane. Diagnosed 5 years ago. Bad days and good days, you know. I'm sorry. Don't be. It is what it is. We all have our challenges. Her gray eyes held Marie's for a moment, conveying understanding without words. They worked in companionable silence for a while, occasionally commenting on particularly interesting donations. Nancy had an eye for quality, picking out designer labels from the pile with practiced ease. "This would look stunning on you," she said, holding up an emerald green sweater. "With your coloring? Perfect." Marie felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You think? Trust me. I used to work in fashion before." She gestured vaguely at her cane. "Old habits." "What do you do now?" "Freelance writing, mostly. Allows me to work from home on bad days." Nancy folded the green sweater and placed it in Marie's maybe pile. "What about you?" "I'm between things right now." "Ah, one of those life transition periods." "You could say that," Nancy smiled. "Well, for what it's worth, you seem to be handling it with grace." As the morning wore on, Marie found herself relaxing in Nancy's presence. There was something calming about her, an acceptance that went beyond mere politeness. When noon arrived and volunteers started breaking for lunch, Nancy touched Marie's arm gently. "There's a sandwich shop around the corner. Want to grab a bite? My treat, as thanks for keeping me company." Marie hesitated. Going to lunch felt like crossing another boundary, moving from acquaintance toward friendship, but Nancy's smile was warm and genuine, and Marie found herself nodding. The sandwich shop was small and cozy, with checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh bread. Nancy ordered a turkey club, while Marie chose a vegetable wrap. Her stomach still too knotted for anything heavy. "So," Nancy said once they were settled, "how long have you been transitioning?" Marie nearly choked on her water. What? Sorry, was that too direct? I have a bad habit of just saying things." Nancy looked genuinely apologetic. "It's just, my best friend in college was trans. You have that same beautiful, terrified energy she had in the early days." "I don't know if I'm transitioning, I'm just exploring." "Fair enough, exploring's good too." Nancy took a bite of her sandwich. "For what it's worth, you're doing great. That pink really is your color." "Thank you." Marie fidgeted with her napkin. "Can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "How did you know? About me?" Nancy considered this. "Little things. The way you check your reflection in windows. Like you're still surprised by what you see. How you sit, very proper, very conscious. The slight panic in your eyes when anyone looks at you too long." She reached across the table and briefly squeezed Marie's hand. "All things that fade with time and practice. Does it get easier?" "Which part? Being yourself?" "Yes. Dealing with other people's reactions?" "That's always a mixed bag." Nancy's expression grew serious. "But living authentically, whatever that looks like for you, is worth the hard parts." They finished lunch and returned to find the church basement mostly empty, the other volunteers having sorted through the bulk of donations. Mrs. Henderson was nowhere to be seen, but she'd left a note saying she'd had to run errands. "Looks like we're on cleanup duty," Nancy said, surveying the remaining boxes. They worked quietly, breaking down empty boxes and organizing the sorted clothes for pricing. Marie found the silence comfortable rather than awkward. When they finished, Nancy leaned heavily on her cane, fatigue evident in the lines around her mouth. "Bad pain day?" Marie asked softly. "Getting there. I probably overdid it." Nancy managed a rueful smile. "Story of my life. Let me drive you home." "I couldn't—" "Please, it's the least I can do after you bought lunch." Nancy acquiesced, directing Marie to a small cottage on the outskirts of town. The front garden overflowed with flowers in riotous colors, beautiful in its deliberate chaos. "Thank you," Nancy said, as Marie helped her to the front door. "For the ride and the company. It was nice to have someone to talk to who wasn't asking about my medical history for a change." "It was nice for me too," Marie admitted. "To talk to someone who just accepted me. Would you want to do it again sometime? Coffee, maybe? I promise not to interrogate you about gender stuff." Marie smiled. "I'd like that." They exchanged phone numbers, and Marie drove home feeling lighter than she had in months. Nancy's easy acceptance, her matter-of-fact approach to Marie's presentation, had been a gift she hadn't known she needed. Over the following weeks, coffee with Nancy became a regular occurrence. Sometimes they met at the shop Linda had first taken her to, sometimes at Nancy's cottage when her mobility was limited. They talked about books, movies, Nancy's writing projects, anything and everything except the obvious topics of gender and illness, unless one of them brought it up. I used to dance, Nancy mentioned one afternoon, gazing out her kitchen window at the rain. Ballet, modern, jazz. I was good too. Had just joined a professional company when the symptoms started. I'm sorry. Me too. But then I think if I hadn't gotten sick, I wouldn't have started writing. Wouldn't have moved here. Wouldn't have met you. She turned from the window with a gentle smile. Life's funny that way. Mary used to say something similar, that every closed door led to an open window. Smart woman. Tell me about her? Marie found herself sharing stories she hadn't told anyone since the funeral, how they'd met at a terrible office Christmas party, their first date at a mini golf course where Mary had beaten him soundly and never let him forget it, the quiet Sunday mornings reading newspapers in bed. She sounds wonderful, Nancy said, when Marie finally wound down. She was. I think she would have liked you. I would have liked to meet her. Nancy refilled their coffee cups. Can I share something with you? Of course. My partner died 3 years ago. Car accident. Nancy's voice remained steady, but her knuckles whitened around her mug. We'd been together 8 years. She was driving to the grocery store to get ingredients for my birthday cake. Oh, Nancy. The grief nearly killed me. That first year, between losing her and getting my diagnosis, I wanted to disappear. Some days I still do. She met Marie's eyes. But then I have coffee with a new friend, or I finish a piece of writing I'm proud of, or I see my garden blooming, and I remember that I'm still here, still living. They sat in silence, two women bound by loss and the daily choice to keep going despite it. Does it ever stop hurting? Marie asked eventually. No, but it changes. Becomes less like drowning and more like a stone you carry. Heavy, but manageable. That evening, Marie stood before her bathroom mirror, removing makeup with the gentle cleanser Linda had recommended. Her reflection looked back, familiar now, this feminine version of herself. The auburn hair that fell past her shoulders, the softened features, the careful arch of plucked eyebrows. But beyond the physical changes, she saw what Nancy had mentioned, a terrified energy, a constant bracing for impact. When would that fade? When would she stop feeling like an imposter in her own skin? Her phone buzzed. A text from Nancy. Thanks for listening today. Your friendship means more than you know. Marie smiled, typing back, Likewise. See you Thursday? Wouldn't miss it. The next session with Patricia focused on the growing friendship with Nancy. It sounds like you've found someone who sees you, Patricia observed. How does that feel? Scary. Good. Like I can't hide anymore, but maybe I don't want to. Marie fidgeted with the hem of her navy dress. She doesn't treat me like I'm fragile or strange. Just normal. Because to her, you are normal. You're simply Marie, her friend. I guess I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop, for her to realize what I am and pull away. What are you? Marie struggled to find words. A fraud? A man pretending? Is that how you see yourself? Sometimes. Less than before, but yes. Patricia leaned forward. Marie, can I share an observation? When you first came to me, you talked about putting on Mary's clothes. Now you talk about choosing your own outfits. You've grown your hair out, developed your own style. You've built friendships as Marie. At what point do you stop being a man pretending and start being a woman living her life? The question haunted Marie for days. When did performance become reality? When did the costume become simply clothes? She thought about it while grocery shopping as Marie, no longer terrified but simply cautious. While having lunch with Mrs. Henderson, who'd taken to introducing her to everyone as my friend Marie without qualification. While sitting with Nancy in her garden, helping deadhead roses with careful fingers. You're quiet today, Nancy observed, watching Marie work among the flowers. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. Nancy adjusted her position on the garden bench, wincing slightly. Want to share? Marie set down the pruning shears. When does it become real? When does what become real? This, me, being Marie. Nancy studied her for a long moment. Honey, you're sitting in my garden, wearing a lovely floral dress, your hair shining in the sun, being more yourself than most people ever manage. How much more real do you need it to be? But I wasn't born this way. Neither was I disabled. Doesn't make my MS any less real. Nancy patted the bench beside her. Come here. Marie settled next to her, careful not to jostle Nancy's bad leg. Real isn't about what you were born as, Nancy continued. It's about what you choose every day. You choose to be Marie. That makes it real. My legal name is still Paper. Just Paper. I could legally change my name to Sparklebutt McGillicuddy. Wouldn't make it who I am. Nancy's expression grew tender. You know what I see when I look at you? Marie shook her head. I see a woman who's been through hell and chose to keep living, who faces her fears every day. Marie took her friend's hand and gently helped Nancy rise from her seat. With arms intertwined, they stepped into the garden, where the roses bloomed in all their splendor. The fragrance of the flowers filled the air, and Marie knew in that moment that love, like these blossoms, needed nurturing and care. As they worked together, deadheading the roses, Marie realized this was more than an end, it was a new beginning. Nancy's unconditional support reminded Marie of the power of friendship, one that could weather all storms and flourish, just like the roses that now adorned their garden. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.